over the weekend. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Well, joining us now is North Carolina Republican Congressman Dan Bishop, who is running for re-election in the state's 9th Congressional District. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Lindsay. Thanks so much.
Congressman, good to have you back. Senator Chuck Schumer over the weekend tweeted, "We now have 2 members of the Senate Judiciary Committee who have tested positive for COVID-19. Obviously, one of them being your colleague from North Carolina, Thom Tillis. Let me walk you through the calendar of why this matters for folks. So right now, there are 2 members of that committee. The Republicans only have a 2-vote majority on the Judiciary Committee. On the 12th of October, they're supposed to start the markup, the hearings of Amy Coney Barrett. On the 15th of October, 3 days later, they're going to have the first markup. That's the lingo, if you will, for the first vote. The Democrats will make a motion, likely, which will give 7 more days to the process, and then they would have the final vote on the 22nd of October in the committee. Then there's a 1-day holdover by Senate rules, a full vote in the Senate on the 23rd, and then just a while later, we've got Election Day. So there's not a lot of room for error. So how big of a deal is it that your colleague, Senator Tillis, has contracted COVID?
Well, and I think Senator Lee also is a member of the Judiciary Committee. You know, Sean and Lindsay, I don't think it's a big deal. The Senate has been conducting virtual committee hearings. In the House, as you know, all proceedings have been subject to proxy participation without being physically present. So Senator Tillis and Senator Lee can participate that way, and I see no reason at all that it should slow anything down. As Senator McConnell has said, full steam ahead, and I believe that's what the American people are expecting.
Real quick there's only a 2-seat majority in the committee. Are you concerned that anybody else might contract it and push this on a little bit further since it's such a tight window like Sean mentioned?
Well, you know, I think it is. We seem to be having this pre-election period in which every news cycle brings a plethora of new developments, and we're going to have to, I think we already are being adaptive and maneuvering with the circumstances, but I just don't, you know, unless you see someone taken ill in a way that they can't function, and you see enough senators affected in that way, I believe the business of the Senate needs to continue. The constitutional process needs to be pursued to conclusion.
Let's move the conversation to the race in North Carolina, the presidential race there. It's been neck and neck. It still is. Just a 2-point lead with Biden ahead of Trump, 48-46. With the president now contracting COVID, do you think this will have an effect at all on the race there in North Carolina?
Well, Lindsay, the president has been to North Carolina a number of times, including recently big airport peaceful protests in Winston-Salem and then in Fayetteville, and they've been very well received. But the president's been very active in North Carolina. I think now people are seeing the president go through COVID, face it with great courage and confidence and strength, and I think that's what the president imparts. This election is about fundamentals, and that's the side that the president has portrayed very effectively. I think it's going to work in the president's favor in North Carolina and many other places.
Yeah, I think it really has the option to do, but I will say that I think there's sort of the jury's out. There's an X factor, how he handles it in the next couple of days. But you're right. I think initially there's enough sympathy and empathy out there that it works in his favor. How he handles it in the coming days is really going to decide a lot. Lindsay mentioned at the start of the segment, though, Congressman, that there's a bit of additional chaos being thrown into that Senate race. Cal Cunningham, the Democratic opponent to Senator Tillis, was caught sexting with someone who is not his wife. Now, these days that happens from time to time, if you will. But North Carolina still has a piece of the Bible Belt in it, and this is what he says: "I've hurt my family, disappointed my friends, and am deeply sorry. The first step in repairing those relationships is taking complete responsibility, which I do, blah, 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 blah." How big of a deal is this? Because the thing is, it's one thing to be unfaithful or have an affair, and that's happened in our country's history in different races. But Cal Cunningham was one person, from what I understand, that was talking about how this was part of his upstandingness, his faithfulness to his wife was a part of his character that he talked about on the campaign trail. So how big of a scandal do you think this is going to be in the North Carolina Senate race?
You know, I think that each candidate comes to the voters with the question of how reliable they're going to be to the voters. And I think Mr. Cunningham has set himself out in a certain way, and it calls this into question. So each North Carolina voter will have to decide for him or herself. And who knows what we'll see between now and Election Day. And of course, people are already voting. 300,000 have already voted in North Carolina. But you know, it is a distraction for him, certainly. And we'll just have to see how it all plays out.
I know it's a distraction, but I mean, I still think of North Carolina's got a good chunk of the Bible Belt in it. And I get you're trying to be diplomatic about that, and I appreciate it. But I have a feeling that if somebody holds themselves up as being, you know, they're a man of their word, they're a good family person, and then this comes out, that undermines their message no matter who you are or what party you're from.
Yeah, and I think, Sean, that it's not so much a question of Bible Belt or not. Certainly, North Carolina values are well known, and there are a lot of people very faithful here. But I think it's more a question of whether someone's a reliable servant to the people, and it goes to the heart of reliability. So I think it's a devastating self-administered blow that Cal Cunningham.
No, I think you're absolutely right, because it's beyond religion. It just goes to your character and who you are, that you can't, if you're going to go out there and tell me you're one type of person and then it comes out that you're quite another, that's more of a hypocrisy thing as well as a religious thing. But I think that's a very, very good point that you're making there, sir.
Congressman Dan Bishop, thank you so much for being here.